Okay, let's take a deep dive. Today we're looking at H.G. Wells' novel, The New Machiavelli.
That's right. And you might wonder why a novel for this kind of discussion.
Exactly, but Wells uses his narrator to give us some, well, incredibly sharp takes on society, politics, and just being human, really, all set against this backdrop of massive change, turn of the 20th century.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic lens. We're not focused so much on the plot, maybe, but more on the insights Wells offers into living through that kind of upheaval, what it felt like.
Yeah, our mission is to sort of get inside the narrator's head. We'll trace his journey right from childhood influences through his political dreams and how it all gets tangled up with his personal life.
And we're hitting some big questions Wells raises, like what actually makes someone dream of building a better state? How do our own lives shape those big public ambitions?
And crucially, what happens when the private stuff crashes head on with the public stage?
It's that classic tension, isn't it? Idealism versus, well, the messiness of reality. Ambition versus entanglement. Let's start with this core idea Wells brings up, the state-making dream.
Right, the state-making dream, what is that exactly? The source calls it this ancient desire, for a world that's better ordered, happier, finer, securer.
And it's not just abstract. He talks about concrete things, better cities, harbors, roads.
Shining navies, great roads, engineered marvelously, yeah. And getting rid of the bad stuff, muddles and diseases and dirt and misery.
Yes, and the passion behind it. Wells really emphasizes that. He compares it to, well, fundamental desires, almost like romantic love. It's this deep driving force.
And you see that spark in the narrator early on. His father, for instance, he sounds really understanding, giving him toys, ideas.
Like the corrugated iron for roofing or the tiger near the road, shared that fascination with building things, with order.
Yeah, but then contrast that with his mother. She seemed less connected to his world, more into her private religious solicitudes, as the text puts it.
Definitely different outlooks. That whole conflict over the Home Churchman magazine, that evil spirit causing a slump in our mutual love each month. It shows these opposing poles right from the start.
And physical things sparked his imagination too, like that old Crimean map in the attic. Pin navigating wasn't just play, it was this early look at geography, order, the bigger world he wanted to fix.
So initially, this dream of fixing things looked kind of traditional, didn't it? Like Machiavelli, find a prince, influence him, get things done.
Or influence the powerful leader.
But he has this key realization. The world's changed. That old sort of prince, well, he's gone. Society's too complex now.
The commonweal is one man's absolute estate and responsibility no more. That's a powerful line.
It really is. Instead, power spread out. Every prince and statesman is something of a servant, and every intelligent human being something of a prince. So state building becomes about influencing lots of people, not just one guy.
And to really grasp the chaos he wants to reorder, Wells shows us Bromstead, his childhood suburb. It's like a case study for this rapid, confusing change everywhere.
Yeah, think about Bromstead 150 years earlier. Small place, maybe 2,000 people, stable, agricultural. Everyone knew each other. Church, market the center of life. Wells uses that Rip Van Winkle idea. It hadn't changed that much for centuries.
But then, bang, this explosion, new stuff driving it. Easier travel, better roads, iron nails, bigger trade, overseas goods coming in bulk.
Agricultural shifts, more printing, slate roofs instead of thatch, then coaches, new roads, villas popping up for people with money from like early corporations, joint stock enterprises.
Boarding schools arrive, pulling kids from London, and London itself, just 12 miles off, is this huge magnet.
But the crucial thing, the way the narrator sees it, isn't progress in a good way. It's a multitude of incoordinated fresh starts. It's progress that had bolted. Change is running wild.
He calls it an immense clustering of futilities. Not directed, just a dull, useless boiling up of human activities.
And you get these really vivid pictures of the mess. Builders' roads just stopping in fields, businesses all jumbled up, pretentious villas jostle slums, the pub and the cheap tin tabernacle church glower at one another.
Old meadows turning into slums, railway lines plastered with ads for pills and pickles, tonics and condiments, stuff for people with, as he says, no natural health nor appetite left.
And it hit home personally, didn't it? His father's struggle with those inherited houses, the stucco white elephants. They weren't assets, they were drains.
Eating up hours and your blood and energy, his father's cry, beware of things. That really links the personal burden to the wider social mess he saw.
That feeling of muddle clearly fuels his desire for order. But then you look at his schooling. It wasn't exactly equipping him for this new world, was it?
Not at all. All that focus on classics, Latin verbs, Greek, Rome, it felt so old, stuck in the leathery stuffiness of time-worn big hall, totally separate from what was happening outside.
Especially when London's right there, hurrying like a cataract, roaring like the very loom of time. This massive new reality that, as he says, no teacher has yet had the power and courage to grasp and expound. Greek and Roman history felt pretty small compared to that.
And the teachers seemed part of the old world, too. Topham, with his perfect English, looking down on utilitarian studies, practical stuff, clinging to Greece and Rome.
Even the headmaster, approving of caning, it all felt disconnected.
But he was feeding his own mind, wasn't he? Reading everything except boys' books, histories, travel, science, controversy, maps. That's where he was really learning about men's affairs.
And his friendship with Britain sounds crucial. They were genuinely curious about everything. Malays, Mecca pilgrims. It gave them a space to question things, be skeptical, push beyond the school stuff.
They had big ideas early on, even if they were a bit naive looking back. Rebuilding London by Act of Parliament, abolishing classes, proclaiming communism.
Yeah, he admits later they didn't really grasp the limits and powers of legislation and conscious collective intention. Yeah, how hard it actually is to change things deliberately.
I love the Pinky Dinkies idea, though.
Yes. Their label for the kind of person they absolutely did not want to be. Superficial, conformist, defining themselves by what they rejected.
And Hatherley's critique about sex, of the swathing up of all the splendors of the flesh, how keeping it hidden led to ignorance and shame. That connects, doesn't it?
It really does. Hatherley arguing universities should let you think of anything that resonates with the narrator's whole drive for a more open, honest look at the world, including the messy human parts.
So all this, the reading, the friendship, the critique, it's kind of preparing him for London, for politics.
Exactly. He leaves his fellowship, publishes books like New Ruler, moves to London, starts writing for papers, joins the 80 Club, learns how to speak to different crowds.
And Mr. Evesham, who liked his book, opens doors for him, introduces him to important people.
Suddenly he's at these London dinner parties. He finds them exciting, glitter and interest, good conversation, gossip, talking with intelligent women.
But Wells also shows us that other side developing. His experiences with ill-mated or erratic or discredited women. It's about appetites and excitement, even the thrill of not being found out.
So even as the public ambition is crystallizing, the private life is getting complicated, setting up that tension.
Yeah, but the main drive, the core ambition, is still there, strong as ever. To leave England and the empire better ordered than I found it, to organize, discipline, build that constructive and controlling state.
He wants to take all these chaotic bits, industry, finance, and somehow bring them back into the service of the general good.
That image he uses is so powerful. An engineer building a lock in a swelling torrent with water pressure as his only source of power, harnessing chaos for order.
But the question is where to apply that energy. He feels stuck somewhere between politics and literature.
And then he encounters Altiora and Oscar Bailey. They offer this whole different model of statecraft, really influential for him.
Very different background. She's from industry, he's civil service, journalism, met through political writing.
Altiora sounds like a force of nature, aggressive, imaginative, ideas, charm, ambition.
While Oscar's quieter physically, but has this incredible memory for facts, great at detailed analysis. Though, interestingly, destitute of initiative. He couldn't really do much with ideas himself.
So their marriage was like a strategic alliance, a stroke of genius. They completed each other. The source flat out says Altiora ran him.
And they were serious about it.
Yeah.
Wedding rings engraved PBP, pro bono publico, for the public good.
Their method was smart. They realized powerful people often rely on others for the detail, the confidently administered detail.
So by mastering facts, gathering information, they made themselves indispensable, a center of reference for laws, policies, how to actually do things.
Altiora nailed it. The last thing influential people will do is to work. They provided the groundwork, the analysis, they did the heavy lifting.
And it's in this world, influenced by the Bailey's approach, that he meets Margaret Seddon, the cotton magnate's daughter, and marries her.
She was interested in social issues, seemed different from his cousin Sybil. He initially saw her through this idealized lens, didn't he? Beautiful things, beautiful land, seeing this regret for learning denied in her.
Their engagement sounds full of big plans, immense anticipations, calling each other Confederate, partners in public service, even visiting government bodies together, like homework.
Yeah, prepping to be this thoroughly efficient political couple of the new type. very much influenced by the Baileys and that whole post-Boer War push for efficiency. Altiora apparently helped define that role for them.
Married life starts nicely enough. Honeymoon in Venice, looking at art, comparing Venice and New York, him developing his theory of Margaret, setting up this lovely London house, his perfect study, electric kettle, fresh butter, the works.
But Wells shows the shift. That idealization evaporated insensibly. He starts finding it hard to maintain that restrained and delicate affection, gets irritable.
His energy isn't quite finding its outlet in the marriage. It's building up. He's longing for events, reading the newspapers with growing excitement. That public drive is still pulling hard.
And this personal restlessness seems to happen right as he's getting a clearer picture of actual politics.
Exactly. The 1906 election, he sees how electioneering shatters convictions, uses crude stuff like that hideous yellow-face poster about Chinese labor. The Liberals win massively, swirling in like a flood.
But getting into Parliament is a letdown. Very unsatisfactory, distressing. He feels like just one small part of this huge, vague majority, no clear plan.
And he hates the focus on procedure, etiquette. Finds it particularly trying. Getting advice like, don't speak much at first.
Speaking in the House itself sounds tough. A confused, uncertain feeling, like walking on trapdoors. Hard to connect.
So his critique sharpens. Conservatives, they protect property, but maybe sometimes constructive if it doesn't cost them. Liberals, he sees them as formless, full of sentimentalizing evasions, trusting vague trends, scared of intellectuals, abjectly afraid of the universities.
That disillusionment pushes him towards others. The new imperialists, Krupp and Gain, they're obsessed with tariff reform, yeah, and a bit rigid, that martinet twist. But they are interested in spending on the military, on education, and seem more open to bold, constructive ideas, especially ones affecting the universities, the upper classes.
So by 1908, he's thinking about switching sides.
And he makes this really key point. You don't end muddle just by giving power to more muddled people. Muddle isn't ended by transferring power from the muddle-headed few to the muddle-headed many.
Real progress for him is intellectual, a rise in the level of its free intellectual activity. He even starts critiquing the Bailey's approach. Now, efficient machinery and fanatical discipline isn't enough without free-moving brains. He talks about needing an arc to save the living thinking part.
Ties into his critique of specialists, too, right? Someone who's only a philosopher or only a statesman is a quack. They deny the frontage, the immediate life, claim to be just hinterland, just the mental part.
He argues you need both. And joining a big cause like socialism, even if it starts broad, can end up narrowing you into a cult.
He even shares Bailey's cynical take on democracy, just a trick to get people to agree with the experts via the ballot box.
And there's this dark undercurrent about war. He discusses a possible European war, maybe thinking England's tendency towards diplomatic compromise might prevent total disaster, despite its underbred aggression. He criticizes the upper-class education for teaching dignified dexterity of evasion.
But wow, he secretly prays for a chastening war. Anything to shock England out of its lethargy of soul. It shows how desperate he is for a real shakeup.
And it's right in the middle of all of this, the political frustration, the personal simmering that Isabel Rivers arrives, changes everything.
He describes her so vividly during that Kinghamstead election. Her energy, decisiveness, courage, her unaffected interest in impersonal things. He sees her almost like a better version of boyhood, not just a woman. His perfect friend.
The connection sounds instant and deep. She just took possession of me, he says. They talk about everything, books, history, art, society, politics. He finds her amazingly sharp and quick and good, totally different.
And then that moment during a speech boom, he knows. He loves her beyond measure.
And here's where it all collides, the state-making dream and personal life. Before, maybe the relations between men and women didn't seem like the state's business in his grand plans.
But things like the suffragettes going to prison showed that the existing rules around gender were just as messy and disordered as everything else. The old barriers, the dams holding back great reservoirs of discussion, were breaking down.
At first, his closeness with Isabel felt okay, maybe because of distance or circumstances, but then he realizes you can't have that kind of deep, untrammeled conversation with this invisible line you can't cross.
He reaches this really stark conclusion. If people connect that deeply, they have to be free to go all the way without the vindictive destruction society throws at them.
Otherwise, the liberal-minded ones are playing with fire. His point is, if you don't want people falling in love outside the rules, keep them apart. If you don't keep them apart, you better be ready for unprecedented toleration of lovers.
That sets up the unavoidable crash, doesn't it? The scandal.
Yeah. The source paints a grim picture. That unnerving realization that rumor and scandal are afoot. He loses confidence, feels whispers, inaudible accusations. People start avoiding him. Mrs. Millingham snubs him. Crampton cuts him dead. His world is crumbling.
And he figures out where it's coming from, the Baileys. Their resentment that he struck out on his own succeeded without them. Altiora and Oscar are actively spreading it, calling him a reckless libertine.
Which leads to that incredibly painful conversation with Margaret. He tells her he's leaving the party. She's terrified, calls it political suicide. She sees it as wrecking everything they'd built, undoing all we have done.
And then his confession, I was in love, I did not understand. Just devastating for her. Her reaction is so raw, he doesn't get her reserves. He's not really a civilized man, hates decent coverings.
She feels he broke his promises to the big causes. And to her, her tiresome, ineffectual companionship, even while saying she loves him in my slower way.
Ugh. And the separation from Isabel sounds just as agonizing. Utter wretchedness, lonely emptiness. Isabel tries to find a way forward, suggesting they talk about his work even after parting to keep that connection, the things we have in common.
She points out that when they were lovers, they actually talked less about the big ideas. He realizes the whole political game felt trivial lately because only with Isabel could he really talk deeply.
But Isabel is breaking too. She feels ill, sick thing, her courage gone, and he blames himself. I made her what she is. I've broken her.
He tries to justify it all to Britain. It's not about delights, he says. It's about love, about Isabel's pain. He talks about this intense physical passion that burns like a fire ends clean. He feels raw with love for her, flayed.
He argues some distresses matter more than any achievement. His life has to align with that now. The personal pain has completely derailed the public trajectory.
And then, to cap it all off, that encounter with the Tory politicians. Their view is so cynical. Politics is just a game of human hate and human credulity, all about protecting their class.
They believe good, honest men rule through hostility, that hate and aggression and force are what actually run the world. It's the absolute opposite of his dream of rational order.
So this whole journey we've tracked through the novel is just such a powerful look at that core conflict, isn't it? Between the grand plans we have for the world and the messy, unpredictable reality of being human, both out there and inside ourselves.
Yeah, we've gone from that childhood dream of order through this chaotic, changing world, difficult relationships, political games, and finally this huge collision between his private life and public goals.
It really leaves you thinking about the tension between those big visions for society and the sheer complexity of human nature, including the narrator's own.
And it brings up a question for all of us, really. How do you square your own ideals, your ambitions for making things better with the demands and, the messiness of your own life, your own relationships?
Can you really keep them separate when you're trying to achieve something significant? Or is that drive for an ordered state always going to clash somehow with the, glorious, unpredictable disorder of the human heart?
Definitely something to mull over.